Hello, my name is Ludwig van Beethoven. I was born December 17th in 1770 in Bonn. It was a little town in Germany. My childhood was marked by both talent and tragedy. My father was a court singer, and my grandfather was a respected musician. Me and my grandfather also happened to share the same name, Ludwig van Beethoven. I think I showed musical talent from a young age, and since I did, my father picked up on that and he started to teach me music from a young age. My mother, Maria, died in 1787 when I was 16. It left a very profound impact on my life, and I think her death also contributed to my future personality that I showed. In 1787, I made a trip to Vienna, which is the musical capital of Europe, at just 17 years old. I studied under well-known composers like Joseph Haydn there during my time in Vienna. By the time I was in my 20s, I think I established myself as a talented pianist and a composer. My earliest compositions, such as Piano Concerto No. 1 and the first string quartets, showed my talent of the classical forms. I think they really did convey how I knew the classical forms as much as I do. And then in my late 20s is when my hearing started to decline. At first, I didn't really think much of it. It was just, every once in a while I'd have ringing in my ear, or I'd have difficulty hearing conversations or music, and I would just be talking to somebody and I just couldn't really hear them. It felt like I had water in my ears, or if I was trying to compose something, it just didn't sound correct. But despite that, despite my hearing declining, despite it going away and altogether, I still continued to work on composing and work on music, work on making music, work on playing, work on writing. But this did leave me feeling very isolated, and I think I conveyed that in some of my pieces. One of them was Eroica, and it expanded the symphonic form, and I introduced new levels of emotional depth in that piece, and that was one of my favorite pieces, honestly. I like to embrace as many ranges of human emotion as I can. That was one of the things that I like to do to try to set myself apart from other composers. I like to try to convey those emotions: sadness, loneliness, desperation, anger. I try to convey those in my music so that the listeners will also feel those emotions as I am playing them. I really do think that my music shows us man in all of his complexities and contradictions, and I think that I can show all of those emotions to everyone. There were In 1795, I published my first mature work. These were the first 3 piano trios, OP1. Once I published those, my career was launched. But my work can be divided into 3 different periods. The first period includes the first, this was in 1800, and the second, 1802 symphonies. The first 3 piano concertos, which is 1795 to 1800. The first group of string quartets, which was also 1800. And a few of my piano sonatas, were released in that first little period of time. These compositions were dominated by the tradition of Haydn and Mozart. You could tell how they inspired this period for me. The Eroica that I talked about earlier was the start of a new era for me. The works of my middle period included the Piano Concertos No. 4 and No. 5. Number 4 was released in 1806, No. 5 was released in 1809. My only opera, Fidelio, was first produced in 1805 and its final form in 1814. There were 4 overtures that I had written for the opera. 3 of those are known as the Lenore Overture. My final period, the third period, dates from 1816, and it includes the Hammerklavier Sonata, which was 1818, and the Ninth Symphony, which was from 1817 to 1823. The last 5 string quartets were composed in my last years. I suffered from my deafness, as I mentioned before, and public performance eventually became impossible for me. And as much as it killed me, it just really was. My creative work was not restricted, though, just because it was impossible for me to perform. And then I got ill, and it just wasn't working. But that is my life, and I hope you found it very interesting. I hope you like some of those pieces I mentioned, or I hope if you haven't listened to them, you listen to them, because I think they're pretty good. Thank you. Bye.